There are countless similarities between the various Star Wars trilogies, and while the sequels are criticized for being unoriginal, the many uses of parallels in the prequels actually complement the story that came before. Today I'll be looking over some of the best ones, while also analyzing why Disney failed to replicate this. Starting with the Phantom Menace, we have this scene where Anakin is cold on the Naboo Royal Star ship on their way from Tatooine over to Coruscant, the capital of the galaxy. Then Padme comes over to wrap a blanket over him and comfort the young boy. This perfectly mirrors the moment from A New Hope where Princess Leia puts a blanket over Luke's shoulders to comfort him after Ben Kenobi dies at the hands of Darth Vader. Speaking of which, next up we have the death of Qui-Gon, which mirrors the death of Obi-Wan in the original Star Wars. Not only is this scene the same in concept, the old wise mentor to our younger Jedi character is cut down with a lightsaber after the end of a long duel with a Sith Lord, but also even with the shots and music, in both movies we see a wide shot of the Sith stabbing the mentor character, either Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan. There's also a close-up of the facial reaction to what is happening to them. It's just earlier with Obi-Wan's scene, and also we cut to a reaction of Obi-Wan/Luke reacting to their master's death, and they both say no. Then we get emotional musical moments from John Williams after both. It is pretty crazy how after 22 years, the John Williams music is just as good, if not arguably better, than it was in A New Hope. Also, an interesting thing about this parallel is that Obi-Wan is in both scenes, just in different ways. And the one big difference is that while Ben Kenobi knew he had to die and accepted it, Qui-Gon was shocked and had no idea this was about to happen. Unless someone in the comments has some headcanon lore that says otherwise. Next up is the mirror/parallel between young Anakin's destruction of the Trade Federation Lucre Hulk, known as the Vuitton Pala, and Luke Skywalker's destruction of the Death Star. But wait, I thought this was about
Anakin blowing up the Death Star.
Anyway, you can clearly see how not only is a younger, inexperienced Skywalker destroying a massive battle station in a starfighter that's new to them, very similar, but also how the specific shot of the core ship/Death Star exploding is nearly identical due to the spherical nature and similar explosion of both. Lastly, for the Phantom Menace is the Naboo victory celebration, which clearly mirrors that of the throne room celebration from A New Hope, with even the central romance of both trilogies being teased here with Padme looking at Anakin and Leia sharing a look with Han. The fact that both of these are weird is the funny part because yeah, Anakin is 9 and Padme is 14, but then again, that might not be as bad as Leia being 19 and Han being 32. So for Attack of the Clones, our first one to look at is the scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan chase Zam Wesell through Coruscant and end up in the Outlanders Club. When Zam Wesell is sneaking up behind Obi-Wan, he turns around to intercept her blast and cuts her arm off. This is suspiciously close to the scene in A New Hope where they are at the Coleman's Spaceport Cantina and Obi-Wan protects Luke from another freaky thug by cutting off the arm of Ponda Baba in a similar fashion. So is it completely coincidence that the romances of the Lucas saga just happen to take place in the middle act of the middle film of both prequel and original trilogies? Well, I suppose that's technically possible, but I truly feel like Lucas must have had this parallel in mind when crafting Attack of the Clones. I mean, Padme and Anakin laying low while Obi-Wan is on Jedi business is very similar to Han and Leia in the Falcon, while Luke is training for Jedi business on Dagobah. Now, you may say that Han and Leia aren't exactly laying low here, but neither are Anakin and Padme if you remember the attempted rescue of Shmi Skywalker and the droid factory on Geonosis. Jango Fett, however, is a central character to Attack of the Clones and only one of the two major bounty hunters of the prequels. But we already talked about Zam Wesell, and what I'm getting at here is that it seems pretty coincidental that Attack of the Clones and The Empire Strikes Back are the first movies to feature a Mandalorian armored bounty hunter, that is ignoring the special edition scene with Jabba in A New Hope. Also, the only movie we see the Slave One in, and the one that has bounty hunters the most in general, is these two middle films, rather that's in the underworld of Coruscant or on an Imperial Superstar Destroyer. On the note of Jango Fett, we also should look at the asteroid chase from Attack of the Clones, which parallels with the asteroid chase of The Empire Strikes Back. Also, they both take place in a belt near or around the planet where the major battle of the film takes place, Geonosis for Episode 2, and Hoth for Episode 5. In this same scene, Obi-Wan has his Delta 7 Jedi Starfighter attached to the back of an asteroid, identical to the Falcon being attached to the back of a Star Destroyer, and Obi-Wan shoots out spare parts, similar to the Falcon disguising itself in the garbage disposal, along with Boba Fett's Slave One. Also, the AT-TE walkers could arguably be a mirror to the AT-ATs from The Empire Strikes Back. And while some would call this a stretch, I personally believe that the fact that Revenge of the Sith, which we'll talk more about momentarily, has a brief amount of walker-like vehicles, mirrors Return of the Jedi, which also briefly shows these walkers. And of course you have the AT-RTs in Revenge of the Sith, and the AT-STs in Return of the Jedi. Lastly, for Attack of the Clones, is how our central character Anakin gets his hand cut off by Count Dooku in the end lightsaber fight of Attack of the Clones, just like Luke, who gets his hand cut off by Darth Vader during the final lightsaber fight of that movie. The only difference is Luke, who screams out in pain, versus Anakin, who has little to no reaction. But before we analyze the various parallels of Revenge of the Sith, let us first look at why the sequels fail to replicate this same formula. Let's use the example of Snoke forcing Rey to look out at the dwindling Resistance fleet, next to Emperor Palpatine showing Luke the struggling Rebellion fleet.
The entire Resistance on those transports. Soon they will all be gone.
See for yourself. From here, you will witness the final destruction of the Alliance.
There are two big problems with scenes like these. One, while the prequels completely reinvented Star Wars, the ships, the worlds, the way the characters act, the sequels tend to just repeat everything of the world building of the originals, which makes these types of moments feel less like parallels and more like lazy replications of the classic moments. And two, the dialogue here is literally about the exact same as it was in the original trilogy.
It was I who
allowed the Alliance to know the location of the shield generator.
But with the prequels, they had entirely different characters and dialogue and roles, and each scene is way more about the visual and thematic parallels rather than literally recreating the scene. So for Revenge of the Sith, we have the opening of the movie, which features an epic swashbuckling rescue mission to save the Chancellor, an important figure of the Republic. From a massive spacecraft, they have to fight soldiers and Sith to get to them, as well as using grappling hooks on conveniently placed ledges. This is all the same as the rescue mission to save Princess Leia in A New Hope, who is an important figure of the Rebellion, and in that one they have to go through a massive spacecraft, fight soldiers and Sith, and use grappling hooks on conveniently placed ledges yet again. Next up is R2-D2's periscope popping out of the pile of B-1 battle droid remains, which is a parallel to the time his periscope rises out of the swampy water of Dagobah in The Empire Strikes Back. Lastly, during the lightsaber fights between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku, we see Palpatine in a throne-like chair, watching his former apprentice about to be defeated by a far younger and more powerful option while cheering on the new apprentice, so to speak. This is identical to Return of the Jedi, which shows Palpatine in a throne watching Vader get pushed back, while Luke Skywalker, a much younger warrior who the Emperor goads on, is there at the same time. Now, while I didn't include this in my script for the video, I would like to also mention the parallel between Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, where we see Anakin, who will basically be Darth Vader within moments, watching Darth Sidious use Force Lightning against Mace Windu and basically doing nothing, as he is very conflicted here. And we can compare that with these blue flashes of lightning on his face 2 of Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, watching Luke getting struck by Force lightning by Palpatine, with him also not doing much of anything there, until he finally makes his decision. But whereas in Revenge of the Sith, that was the decision that led to his fall from grace and his plunge into the dark side, in Return of the Jedi, this is where he is redeemed and completely reverses that action there by actually doing the right thing and saving his son.
In the description of this video, you will find a link to DBBH store. If you wish to support the Empire, Republic, you should check out the new fall merch drop. Not only are there new sweatpants and sweaters with the messages of deleted scene and Dooku head,
but there's also some fire Anakin streetwear too. Wait, are those younglings over there?
But anyway, that's it for this video. You can subscribe if you want to. Consider checking out the merch in the link in the description to see the brand new fall merch drop for the Blue Bounty Hunter store. Also, leave a comment down below if you had any questions about this video or any video suggestions for the future, or even if you just want to tell me how your week's been going. Starting with this one, I actually want to introduce a little bit of a new segment here where I just go over a few different things from this week that I wanted to share with y'all from my life. For one, I was just going to say the album of the week for me is going to have to be Late Registration by Kanye West. So yeah, let me know what y'all think about that album. And as far as any Christianity or just life advice that I've learned this week, well, I just finished Ezekiel, so yeah, it's definitely a little bit more of a difficult book of the Bible to get through. It is a lot more about like stuff like architecture and all the punishments that Israel is going to face. So there's some, it was more difficult to read, but I'm excited to get into the New Testament, or actually the Apocrypha, then the New Testament soon enough. That'll definitely be cool. And then life advice of the week is to just, I don't know, if you're really struggling and you're having a bad time, you'd be surprised by just how much, like, getting all of your, like, daily tasks, just getting everything that you wanted to get done throughout the day, doing that can make you feel exponentially better. So yeah. And also, if you're ever fearful or just don't see how there's any way something could get better, trust in God. He's got your back. And shout out to my editor, Zeno Harry. Check out his channel. He's been doing shorts for me for the last month, and he's low-key doing a great job. And I'm really happy with what he's been doing for the channel. It's been helping me out a lot, saving me some time that would just ruin my schedule if he wasn't there. So, big thank you to him, and yeah. But I upload normal videos every Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, I post shorts every single day. But yeah. See ya.